To the Point with Michael Williams.
Good morning and welcome. We hope you and your family are safe and well. We welcome Republican Congressman Brian Mast, representing Martin, St. Lucie, and parts of Palm Beach County, to our broadcast this day to talk about the coronavirus crisis and the response. Congressman, thank you for being with us. We appreciate it very much. Talk about the growing and burgeoning discussion about reopening our economy. What are your thoughts? Where do you stand? What are the cautions and the warnings that you have?
No, President has obviously come out with phased approaches to doing this, from where people might normally congregate, like a restaurant or a movie theater, to schools and things like that. He's come out with different parameters, which we can get into details if you want. Those can be read online. But I think one of the most important things that we talk about here is the fact that the world has changed for all of us in terms of our ability to go out there and assess our personal risk, and all of the doctors out there going out there and informing everybody of the personal risk. So I think we all have a better grasp of how we handle that for ourselves. Do we have a protective mask on our face? How do we wash our hands and the surfaces around us? How close do we get to people? And I think that allows us to deal with this reopening in a much better way than if we were having this conversation, let's say, 5 weeks ago.
Are we moving too quickly?
My opinion is that we are not moving into this too quickly. I think that this is something, as I just said, I think we're all a great deal more educated in terms of how we deal with this. But I think we look at what is the divide between those in the medical community, not a divide, but the difference in how we analyze things, those in the medical community versus those of us just as American citizens. Our doctors go out there and they tell us things all the time about risk. Hey, don't smoke, don't drink too much, don't eat too much bacon, you're in the military, guess what? They told me jumping out of airplanes could be dangerous and it could hurt my health. At the same time, though, we all still have jobs to do. We have things that we have to go out there and get done. Congress is no different. You're no different. We have to go out there and be able to assess the risk for ourselves, the risk that we're posing to other people that we're going to come in contact with, like our loved ones. You have an older father. I have an older father. So what is that risk that we're posing to others? And then mitigate it as best we can, but do what we do, always continue to get the job done. And that's what this is about.
Conversely, Congressman, what do you say to those, and we're seeing a growing cry in some states from people who are complaining about what they call government overreach in terms of the social distancing? So you certainly have the concern that people legitimately have about their livelihoods, but what would you also caution those who are tugging at the bit, understandably, but are complaining this is overreach? Talk about the balance of thinking that we all have to have, as difficult as it is right now.
You know, we spoke a couple of weeks ago, and I think maybe one of the things that we spoke about is just what we just talked about. People have to be able to manage their own risk. I think this has been an important lesson, that government will go out there and they'll give us the risks, but we have to go out there and do that for ourselves. Government is not the right tool to do this, especially as Americans who value freedom and liberty above anything else. I was raised in Michigan. I can tell you that I've heard from a lot of folks in Michigan about what's going on there, with the fact that they're saying, well, you can go into a Home Depot, but you're not allowed to buy anything from the paint department or anything from the home and garden section, because you know what, if we're not going to allow landscapers to go to work or painters to go to work, then we can't allow you to go out there and paint a room in your house or plant something into your garden. Here in Florida, I think we see a lot of people saying, you know what, I might want to get out on the water. I want to go utilize one of our boat ramps. I want to go to the beach. There's no better place than where I can get away from other people than on this vast expanse of the ocean or our rivers or our beaches. Why don't you open that up so we can do that? I think it makes perfect sense. And again, I think as Americans, we want to be able to gauge our own risk and then act accordingly as part of being an American.
But to encourage continual sensible social distancing, especially for our more vulnerable populations. I know it's something you've talked about.
Yeah, look, my background, bomb technician. The way that I would protect myself from a bomb was very similar to the way that I would protect myself from coronavirus. In the military, I called it TDS, time, distance, and shielding. How much time was I going to spend on top of that explosive device? The more time in front of it, the more at risk I was. What was my distance from it, right? If I was 1 foot in front of that explosive device, I was at higher risk than if I was 6 feet away working on it with something that would allow me to work from distance. Same thing with coronavirus. And then shielding. Do I have a mask over my face? Am I wearing some kind of buff like what my kids would bring to camp or other places, which I'm doing when I'm when I'm out in public places, just to put that physical barrier between myself getting germs into my ear, nose, and throat, and me not spreading those things to other people's ear, nose, and throat. And those are things that we are, as a population, are so much more educated in today than we were even just a couple of weeks ago. And I think that bodes really, really well. I'd give you one other quick point. I've been on the phone with numerous of our hospitals already this morning, yesterday, and in the weeks previous. And they're telling me they are absolutely seeing a flattening of the curve. They're telling me that some of their stockpiles on protective gear are getting, increased, that they have enough to make sure that even if somebody is coming in, not necessarily for COVID-19, but they're a patient for whatever, that both the healthcare providers have a mask and all of the people coming into those medical centers have a mask. Now, there's different parameters in different medical centers. I don't want to speak for all of them in giving some of those things, but these are the things that I'm hearing from different medical centers in our area.
Governor DeSantis following the White House lead, talking about his own plans to reopen Florida. But for your constituency here in the Treasure Coast and part of the Palm Beaches, should we have a cautionary note that reopening may look different than it will look in more rural parts of North Florida, at least at the outset?
I don't think that that's a question, even for the way that we go out there and do things in our own lives. If I go to the grocery store, or I go into a home goods store or something else like that, I am going to act differently. I'm going to have a protective barrier over my mouth, at least for a little while into the future. My kids are going to have that as well. That's just something that I'm doing to manage it myself. I think we are going to see that. I think as you look in higher areas of population, you're going to see the space in, as you pointed to, differently than what you're going to see it in some rural areas of population. I don't think that's a question at all.
Let's talk about pocketbook concerns. I know they've been of great concern to you. Obviously, Congress does not run the Florida unemployment system, but you've certainly, I know, heard from constituents who've been furious, been upset, frustrated that the Florida unemployment benefit system has been a mess up until recently. The governor now focusing a lot of effort on that. What, from your point of view, can you all do beyond putting some additional pressure and focus on that, as some of your Democratic colleagues have done, to say, let's get our act together in the year 2020, get the computers up and running, get those benefits out to Floridians? What do you say to those you represent who are frustrated with the Florida system? Again, it's a state system, but in your role in Congress, What can you do?
So a couple of things. One, we have a number that was tweeted out yesterday from the new director of this agency that it took my breath away when I heard the number. I literally couldn't believe what I was hearing when he tweeted out, or what I was reading, when he tweeted out saying they've had roughly 825,000 claims for unemployment over the last, whatever the period was he was referencing, and they had processed about 35,000 of them. My jaw dropped when I heard that. I couldn't believe that that was the lag that was going on here. Now, as what my office has been doing on this front for unemployment is a number of things. Every person that reaches out to my office, we deal on a case-by-case basis. There's no mass email that gets sent out to anybody in any kind of way like that. We reach out for each individual to that Office of Unemployment. They don't fall under my jurisdiction, so to some degree, we're at the mercy of them to call me back so we can say, what's going on with this person's case? Why aren't they hearing anything? How do we keep them from being in the dark? We're sending a spreadsheet to that office on a daily basis. We have been for several weeks, saying these are the calls that we got in today. These are the specific problems. Please let us know, what is your follow-up going to be with them. The previous director of that administration, of that agency, I've been on the phone with numerous times a week asking what's up with this person's case or this person's case or this person's case. The last thing that I'll give you on this is the governor. I spoke to the governor a couple days ago, and here was the request that I made to him. I said, Governor, my office is getting all of these calls every day. You are a member of Congress. You know what our staff is like, that we're used to dealing with people's personal information. But all I can do is direct somebody really to some other phone number where they might have to wait on hold 5 minutes. Why don't you allow my staff, give my staff training, or give my staff the authorization that here's a login code so that we can go on to that unemployment website, and if we need to, input somebody's unemployment information because they weren't able to log on, or get into the system and say, no, this is where it says your claim is going on right now. This is the place that you were at. You could expect this in the next couple of days. The governor was very receptive to that. It's something that we're literally working on as we speak. Yesterday, my staff was getting trained up on about 120 pages of material to deal with these kind of cases. And now we're working on saying, all right, get us the logins so that when somebody calls Brian Mast's office with an unemployment issue, issue, my staff, instead of having to refer them to somebody else, can just log into the system and get them a direct answer as though we managed and worked for that agency ourselves. That's just one of the ways that we're trying to work on it. And if it's successful, I think you'd see all members of Congress and people from state houses to state senators to mayor's offices trying to assist in the exact same way.
Congressman, what about help for farmers? I know you expressed concern about that early in the week. Farmers are being hammered, agriculture in Florida and around the country. What specific help are you trying to make sure we're offering them?
Devastated. These, our agriculture across the spectrum. One of the things that I've set up today, I want to say that the call is at about 2:00 today. So if there's, I know we're recording this, but there's a call going on for all of our agriculture people, with the Undersecretary of Agriculture at the federal level, at the Department of Agriculture, that I put together specifically so these people can speak to that agency directly and say, these are the crops that we're having to go out there and plow under. These are the food items like dairy and other that we're having to just let go out into a drain or a field. This is what's happening. This is a way that we could better address this. Please stop bringing in these products from Mexico or from Peru or from somewhere else. This is happening as we speak. We're trying to get all of those agriculture folks in our area the opportunity to directly voice what's going on to them to the Department of Agriculture, and hopefully they respond in the most appropriate way. Our president hasn't had a problem in the past with doing things like tariffs and other things to say, put America first, put America's jobs first. Let's make sure that we put America's agriculture industry first as well.
The Paycheck Protection Program ran out of money at the federal level. Small Business Administration, about $350 billion in loans. As we speak right now, it's not been refunded. And even when it was funded, people had trouble getting through. Democrats argue they want more in there for hospitals and other things, and that it's a logjam between Republicans and Democrats on refunding it. What can you say about the small business loans coming from Congress to help many of your constituents here? Are we going to get the funding, get rid of the debate between Republicans and Democrats, and how quickly do you think we can reauthorize more money and get that to some of your constituents with small businesses who are hurting so badly?
First thing I would just simply say is I'm sorry. And I couldn't mean that more seriously. I am literally embarrassed that I'm sitting in an office in Stuart, Florida, talking to you instead of the halls of Congress in Washington, D.C. This was a ridiculously predictable problem that I was messaging a week ago that, hey, this is going to run out. Congress needs to be in session. We're not up there. This is the nature of duty, that we understand that there are risks, but we still go and we get the job done anyways. And it didn't happen. And I'm sorry to every one of you out there that is a small business owner that has now had to hear that the Paycheck Protection Program loans have unfortunately run out of the dollars that have been authorized for that program. I absolutely believe that Congress will get more dollars into that program, another $200 billion or $300 billion into that program, and more if need be. I am absolutely committed to making sure that anybody that is a small business owner doesn't have to be told, sorry, you weren't the first 10 people in line, you're SOL, tough luck. That shouldn't be the case. I'm committed to making sure that happens. As I said, I couldn't be more embarrassed that Congress isn't in session working on this. I wish that I could make Speaker Pelosi bring us back. She has said she doesn't plan to bring us back until May 4. I think it's ridiculous. It goes against every fiber of my being as a soldier that's willing to go out there and undertake risks to get the job done no matter what. It turns our back against our first responders, our healthcare workers, nurses, doctors, our law enforcement, everybody out there that's out there doing their job anyways, even though they're at risk. This is Congress saying, sorry, we think the risk is too great for the political class of people to go out there and do their job like you're doing your job. I think it's ridiculous. Again, all I can say is I'm sorry that that's the case, and I hope that Congress does better.
Congress, we have about 30 seconds left. Your final message to people who are sitting there saying what the world looked like and what it's going to look like for my family, for my job, for my health, for my life. What do you say to people? All of our compass bearings have been thrown off.
I just gave you a rant. I'm going to give you something hopeful. We're Americans. We overcome challenges. This is what we do. It's what defines us as a people. Our grit, our determination, our willingness to come together the the way we come together in times of trial, this is going to be no different. We are going to come to the bigger the challenge, the bigger the way we come together. We're going to come together better in the end of this. I've been proud of this community, the way we've come together. Let's keep doing it. Let's show the world who citizens of the United States of America are and why this is the greatest place on earth. And I think that's what's going to happen. That's the way that I want to end it, because that's what's going to happen.
Congressman Brian Mast, thank you so much for taking time to join us. Again, that was Congressman Mast joining us from his Stewart office as we continue to sample opinion from Republican and Democratic leaders and others in our community seeking answers for you.